The world has been in lockdown for the last many weeks because of COVID-19. In India, even though the national lockdown may have been eased, COVID-19 positive numbers are still steadily increasing. For the last 10 weeks during the lockdown, nature has stepped in to what was only a few months back a concrete jungle. Like in many parts of the world, wild animals, often relegated to thick forests, came into cities. Is this pandemic teaching us coexistence or is it warning us? That's what we'll talk about today. Hello and welcome. This is Eco India and I'm Sanuta Raghu coming to you from my makeshift home studio here in Mumbai. Flamingos are the pride of Mumbai. This year, with reduced human activity due to the lockdown, experts at the Bombay Natural History Society believe that their numbers might have increased by 25% year on year. The society has been conducting an important research exercise to find out how and why flamingos flock to Mumbai through late autumn and early spring.
Mumbai witnesses one of the greatest natural spectacles on earth when thousands of breeding flamingos descend on its creeks. Earlier this year, their numbers were some of the highest ever recorded since they began arriving in the 1980s. This year, the birds were given an extra treat. India imposed its own coronavirus lockdown and most humans disappeared from the breeding grounds. Locals could get no closer than their balconies, as Thane's wetlands served up a feast for the birds. A diet of crustaceans, aquatic plants, and blue-green algae attract them annually from southern Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Rahul Khote works with the Bombay Natural History Society and is heading a 10-year-long monitoring project.
Since last 2 years, we are actually doing that exercise where BNHS team is actually going monthly into the Thane Creek and systematically counting flamingos from all these 20 and 20 kilometer banks, east and west bank. March 2019, we recorded around 1,34,000 flamingos. So that is the highest number so far recorded from Mumbai.
Mumbai's urban rush might seem anti-nature, but the city hosts the second largest population of flamingos in India after the salt plains of the west. Flamingos are one of the few species whose numbers have actually increased. Ornithologists call this phenomenon edge nature, where human interference in an ecosystem can occasionally actually benefit wildlife. And the interference in Thane Creek is enormous, as it acts as a dumping ground for untreated domestic and industrial waste for a large part of the city. The sewage in turn promotes the growth of algae on which the flamingos thrive. Ornithologist Sanjay Monga has been following these birds since they first arrived. He believes that while they are doing well at the moment, the balance is a delicate one.
So one of the reasons for that, the expansion of the flamingo in the Mumbai region along the Thane Creek may have been the refineries themselves, along Mahul, which release warm water. So the creeks may have been just perfectly polluted, as I say, just sort of the perfect warmth is there in the waters, because that is what is conducive to flamingos and huge congregations of other waders also congregating.
Researchers have found that under the lockdown, the birds thrived once humans withdrew and they had their habitat to themselves. But the ever-increasing pollution is a problem not so easily dealt with and could easily tip the scales against the flamingos.
So if the wetlands completely disappeared, the story ends, right? I mean, there's nothing left for the waders and the flamingos. I mean, waders and the flamingos and the other waders. So the primary point is saving the sites.
Over the last 2 years, the BNHS has been looking at building a knowledge base for these and other migratory birds, a long-term study to define their behavioral trends. From studying them in their habitat to creating awareness drives and tagging and ringing them for a population count, the organization is currently studying close to 80 migratory species that will help them build a case to protect Mumbai's wetlands.
So we are trying to understand their ecology, their biology, their numbers, their migration, and we'll put all this data into some statistical modeling. We'll also analyzing how all this landscape has changed over the past years. You know, if you see this entire landscape of Navi Mumbai, all this was like a wetland, mosaic of wetland and salt pans.
The vast numbers of birds serve as a reminder of a time when nature was truly in charge here. If the right steps are taken to understand wildlife and protect habitats, hopefully the flamingos will continue to return in the same numbers long into the future.
All through the lockdown, I've received loads of forwards and seen social media posts on wild animal sightings in cities, saying mainly that they have returned because of less pollution, less noise, and fewer people. How true is this deduction? We tried to get to the core of these observations.
With humans remaining self-isolated in their homes, several videos like this Twitter post flooded the internet, even making international headlines. A range of wildlife had been spotted across several urban centers in the world under lockdown. But have these animals suddenly bounced back to reclaim their lost habitats, as many viral videos insist? The answer is unequivocally underwhelming. The heartening sentiment that nature is reclaiming its spaces is sadly a myth. Wildlife experts say most of these birds and animals have existed in close proximity to urban spaces for years. While these Twitter videos claim that humpback dolphins only recently returned to Mumbai's waters, they have actually been documented here for the last 15 to 20 years.
People who loved wildlife, people who enjoyed looking at animals, they were always seeing them. There are no new species that have come into the cities. It's that the people have started observing them much more because now they are in a jail-like situation. So it's basically they become more observant, but what you see was always there even before the lockdown.
In a sign of our times, a few fake videos also turned up in the mix. One post circulated widely on social media claiming blue whales were also frolicking in the crystal blue waters off the coast of Mumbai. Soon after, it was debunked. So why do people keep falling for misinformation about animals, especially during a time of crisis?
People are, first of all, confined. They are continuously bombarded with a lot of sad news. And then when they see a bird outside or when they see a video of a lovely animal walking on the street, it really, there is that kind of a guilt. People are introspecting and everybody knows that this has happened because we have degraded the forest.
Obsessing over social media posts is often counterproductive and undermines genuine knowledge about the environment. The lockdown put the brakes on our frantic pace of living, returning peace and fresh air to our cities. But biodiversity needs more than a few weeks to recover. And fake videos that spread that kind of deception only serve to distract from the very real consequences of environmental destruction.
Through the steady destruction of wildlife habitat, humans have been putting animals under stress. Species have become crowded together. They've been forced to come into greater contact with humans. Some are even poached and sold in markets. Experts say this loss of habitat creates conditions for new viruses and diseases such as COVID-19 to come into our lives.
Wild animals in cages, many of them injured and weak. It's filthy and cramped, and the animals are in close contact with humans. The coronavirus may have started to spread in an animal market like this. It's the perfect breeding ground for new diseases.
Markets like this provide an opportunity for pathogens to make the leap from one species to another. In the process, the pathogen can develop characteristics that make it easier to spread to a third species, in this case, to humans.
Experts have long been warning that the trade in wild animals could be a ticking time bomb. More than 2/3 of infectious diseases that affect humans originate in wildlife. Those include deadly diseases such as the Ebola virus, SARS, and HIV. Scientists call such diseases zoonotic because they originate in animals.
Zoonotic diseases can be dangerous because the pathogen can develop new capabilities in its new host. The new host has no immunity, so infection can often lead to serious disease.
The coronavirus pandemic has thrust these wild animal markets into the spotlight. Around the world, many are calling for a total ban. The animals are sold not just for food for private households. Some species are sold to make traditional medicines or aphrodisiacs. Others end up as pricey delicacies on restaurant menus. Animal protection activists like these in Vietnam say that the only way to reduce the risk of pandemics is to ban the commercial trade in wild animals.
Viruses don't really make a distinction, along the entire trade chain. They don't make a distinction whether the trade is legal or illegal, whether the trade is for bushmeat, for food, for medicine, or as exotic pets.
Activists agree. The desire for an exotic pet is part of the problem. There's a flourishing illegal online trade in them, especially involving reptiles. But wild animals are also sold online illegally. They pose the highest risk for transmitting viruses to humans.
All of the countries are having wildlife trade in this very connected world we live in. And so now, more than any time, more than any other time, we need to unite. All of the countries need to be united to address wildlife crime, which is the root of the pandemic.
China has now temporarily banned the trade and consumption of wild animals. But as long as the worldwide market exists, the threat of new viruses will continue.
Well, it's great that we are now noticing the animals who cohabit with us. Those animals who may not always come out into the opens in the middle of traffic or huge crowds. Portugal's capital, Lisbon, is home to thousands of wild cats. And since the last year, they've been very busy with an important task at hand.
They prowl through the streets in silent pursuit of their prey. Lisbon's cats are helping sort out the city's rodent problem. Some 6 million rats live here, and the feline forces are out to get them. Ana Duarte and her colleagues from the organization Animals on the Street go round picking up feral cats. Then they relocate them in places where the rat plague is at its most severe.
Cats being a predator, so the smell of the cat keeps the rats away from the surface. So it's a good thing for them to do. You give them a home, and in exchange they keep the rats away from your house.
Lisbon authorities are keen to build up a cat patrol. But rounding up the city's feral cat colonies is anything but easy. This attempt fails. Anna and her team make another attempt. Ideally, they'd like to catch the entire colony.
Cats make friends. So it's usually much easier to relocate a colony if you put friends together cats that usually sleep together, cats that play together, brothers or sisters, than if you do it individually.
Lisbon is home to thousands of cat colonies. Marija Quaresma dos Reis is Lisbon's ombudsman for animal rights. She's one of the initiators of the rat control program.
The cats win, people win, and of course the rats win as well, because this is an ethical way to control rats in the city. Well, rats can, of course, be afraid of cats, and they just disappear from the places where they are seen.
Success. One cat is trapped. It panics. It has no idea yet that this will work out well. These cats are pioneers, so to speak. A lot is expected from them, but they're taking it easy as the hunt begins.
Staying with domesticated animals, a veterinary doctor in Bangalore has come up with a much-needed solution during the lockdown. He has introduced a remote vet support service to help pet parents whose animals are in immediate physical danger or in urgent need of veterinary care. The feedback has been overwhelming, and his Dial-A-Vet service is highly requested.
Suranjana Ganguly is treating one of the 70-plus patients at a trauma center for animals in Bangalore. The number of critical cases coming into the clinic has soared since the restrictions due to the COVID-19 crisis began.
The biggest issue with the lockdown in stray animals was that lots of people went back home, and there was obviously restriction on travel. So we couldn't attend as many cases as we normally do. So the number of animals that received attention from us was reduced. And the animals that started coming into us were extremely critical, animals that are really in a terrible way. So I think that the worst way stray animals were affected was that they did not get enough attention at the early stages of their illnesses, or, when they really needed attention.
Besides the daily veterinary work, Dr. Ganguly and her husband Shantanu Kalambi realized during the lockdown that other services were necessary. They set up the Woof Wagon, a service that offers consultations on the phone or through video calls for those who cannot access proper help for strays or pets.
Okay. Being in India, there are a lot of places which have no access to vets. We have small towns and villages where there are government vets, but they aren't very good with small animals. And so we started getting a lot of calls from these small towns. So when we started up, we looked at we started up with a very reasonable price, where people from anywhere in the country could call and get information.
A month into the service, Dr. Kalambi receives 20 calls a day, including some from the most remote parts of India. They are now planning to go bigger and rope in more vets, as the lockdown has made them realize how much help they can offer, even without physically being present.
All right. I don't think telemedicine has been really explored within the country much, and so we get it's a very new model. Scratch her back and kind of rub your hands down the spine.
Some clients now regularly seek advice via video call to ensure their aging dogs are comfortable, all without the need to leave the house.
It's not like they needed immediate medical attention in terms of some kind of treatment, but for example, my dog with the arthritis, he told me how to give her a massage so that she'd feel better. So it hasn't really been that difficult in terms of getting attention and getting solid advice that we can use at home.
When they fill out the form, the first thing I ask is whether it's an emergency or not, because we don't treat emergencies over the phone. So I recommend they go to their closest vet, and based on where they are in the country, I suggest a clinic that they should go to or that's closest to them.
Some cases just cannot be tended to remotely, like these two elephants on the outskirts of Bangalore that Dr. Kalambi has been treating for almost 5 years. He's continued to visit them, taking the necessary precautions and gaining special permission to travel.
So she has a lot of problems like arthritis and these abscesses that we're taking care of. One, because she had an accident when she was much younger and as such can't bend her front legs at all. So she gets laser therapy once a week just to take care of the inflammation around her knees and her elbows. And it's something that's going to be a lifelong treatment.
Animals around the country are getting a little bit of relief thanks to remote treatment that many doctors and vets are now trying out. Combined with actual visits, these new methods could turn out to be beneficial and more efficient in a post-COVID world too.
Wildfires are one of the devastating effects of droughts due to climate change. Many parts of the world are hit by fires every summer. But in southern Europe, in Portugal, farmers have found a very natural way to prevent these fires with the help of, no kidding, goats.
Here in the Portuguese mountains near Coimbra, these goats are playing a vital part in preventing forest fires. The 80 animals feed on greenery to create natural fire breaks by eating away the brush which catches fire easily.
I'm proud of their job and the job that we do with them, and that's it. I think that they can be a part of the solution for the forest fires.
He remembers the last big blaze. In 2017, the flames destroyed vast areas of local forest and 500,000 hectares across the country, more than ever before. Back then, Luis was working as a building contractor. After losing his warehouse and machines to the flames, he reinvented his life. Today, the 40-year-old is a goat herder, just like his grandfather before him. Because most local landowners have moved away, there's nobody to clear away grass and shrubbery, which act as a fire accelerant in the summer. Until now, fire breaks had been maintained using expensive machines.
With the goats, we can actually do the same job and at the same time bring some value and some occupation back to the interior of the country that's been deserted and abandoned for a few decades.
Avelino Rego, too, has switched careers to help prevent forest fires. He quit his job as an IT specialist and moved back to his parents in the mountains. Today, the 35-year-old works as a cattle farmer.
Mimosa, vamos, vamos! Vamos para casa, vamos! All my time, I used to criticize what we don't do for nature conservation. And when I realized that I didn't do anything as well, I decided no, I need to try to do the things I am complaining that others aren't doing.
He aims to show that Maronesa, a traditional domestic breed of mountain cattle, can also prevent fires, because they too eat grass and shrubs. Montes, a nature conservation association which Avelino Rego belongs to, has even purchased land itself. Pruning should help these young oak trees to grow big and strong. Less grass will grow under the shade they'll provide, meaning less flammable material.
Probably they know that they will not take any money from the land, but they are ready to adopt another management model. So we are trying to demonstrate that with small money we can have fire, that's true, but with less damage.
Portugal is the European country most affected by forest fires. In cooperation with fire departments, scientists at the University of Coimbra are researching the causes of such fires. They say the country's climate, monoculture tree plantations and rural depopulation all play a major role.
If we don't manage our forests better, we're likely to suffer even bigger fires in extreme weather conditions.
Portugal is searching for strategies to prevent wildfires from spreading. In some cases, that means returning to age-old methods. Luis Fontinha and his goats are just the beginning.
That's all we have for you today. As we all come to grips with the effects of the novel coronavirus pandemic, the answers to many of our questions lie in adapting to this new life. We'll see you again next week. Until then, stay safe and take good care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.